Good morning, Nigeria, and welcome to another edition of What's Your Take? My name is Dayo Akintobi, and I will be taking you through the major stories that made the headlines yesterday, today, and every day. Joining me to bring you those stories is our newscaster, Monisola Abosede. Good morning, Monisola. How are you today?
Good morning, Dayo. I'm doing very fine this morning. Thank you. How are you doing too?
I'm very well. I had a bit of problems getting to the studio this morning. How was traffic for you? What with the fuel queues, traffic everywhere? We all got to the studio very late this morning. How was it for you getting here?
Well, it was not really easy for me getting to the studio this morning. There are a few buses on the road, and even the buses that are on the road, they've increased the bus fares, due to fuel scarcity and the increase in the price of fuel.
Yes, indeed. I guess that's every Nigerian's experience this morning. We're in a new era, new government, but it's also a new regime on fuel as well. We'll discuss that a lot later in the program with our guest after we've come back from the break and Monisola has read all the news highlights. All right, let's start this morning with some of the inauguration highlights. As you know, we were not here on Monday. The show didn't take place on Monday because it was Inauguration Day. So, of course, we were all in Abuja, in Lagos, all over the place, covering the various inaugurations, and so the show did not hold. One of the things that was interesting at the Abuja inauguration, as captured by video on social media, was the fact that Governor Soludo of Anambra State was unable to get into the VIP pavilion in Abuja. Can you imagine that? His protocol people must have messed up to some extent that when he tried to access the VVIP pavilion, he was denied entry. What an embarrassment. I hope his protocol people have taken note and they won't allow any such thing to happen again. We also saw a video yesterday of President Buhari, former President Buhari now. It'll take a while to get used to calling him former President Buhari. There was some video of him back in Daura in very humble circumstances in his living room, and they were about, I think, to break fast and have their evening meal, and you could see the sparseness of the living room and very humble circumstances. And it just brings home to you how transient power is. 24 hours earlier, he was guarded, he was in a limousine, he had all the instrumentalities of state power, he had the pomp and the pageantry. And here he is 24 hours later in bedroom slippers, a simple jalamia, very simple living room. And you just ask yourself, why do we actually go through all of the stress and all the pressure when at the end of the day we're going to leave with nothing the way we came with nothing? It's a very humbling lesson for all of us to recognize the fact that power is fleeting, it's transient, it's highly temporary. All right, you might have also heard that there's a squabble between the EFCC and the DSS. They had problems in their offices in Ikoyi, Lagos yesterday, where one invaded and the other was on the defensive. The scary part for me is they both have guns. Can you believe? Both of those agencies are fully armed and they faced off on each other. In fact, we heard there were gunshots here and there. Fortunately, President Tinubu has told them to call off the skirmish. We don't quite really understand what happened because, truth be told, they're both agencies of the executive agencies of the federal government. They're under the same authority. So whatever it is that's jurisdictional issues or power tussle, it shouldn't have blown up or escalated to the point of public squabble that may have endangered the public, to where these two armed agencies are squaring off against each other. Scary. All right, and finally, in this day's potpourri, the last story is the new governor of Zamfara State yesterday declared his assets. You might say, what's the big deal in that? They declare assets every day. Well, this guy has, wait for it, 7 trillion naira worth of assets. One man, 7 trillion. You heard me correctly. I didn't say billion. I said trillion. Jeez whiz. One man. How did he accumulate that kind of wealth? What chances do any competitors have against him? We just passed independent candidacy. Imagine if an independent candidate were running for governor of Zamfara against somebody who's got a war chest of 7 trillion naira. He can close his eyes and spend 1 trillion on his campaign. What hope does anybody else have? And we say there's no money in Nigeria. There's money, it's where it is. 7 trillion naira, one man. Jeez whiz. The entire country's foreign debt. The entire country's debt is 77 trillion. One man owns 10% of that amount. Wow, Nigeria, we hail thee. All right, having dispatched with the lighter items on our agenda, I hope you had a good laugh at some of them. It's time to delve into the substance of today's program. And for that, I will hand over to Monisola to give us the headlines of the major stories we'll be looking at today. Monisola, over to you.
All right, Dayo. Thank you. Hello and welcome to the news update on What's Your Take. First, the headlines. Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, sworn in as the 16th president of Nigeria, announces removal of fuel subsidy, fuel price shoots up, queues resurface at filling stations. President says he will revisit Naira redesign, pledges to unify foreign exchange rates. US President Biden promises to support Tinubu's government. Governor Sanwo-Olu, sworn in for the second term, promises Lagosians a better administration. Now on the details. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was sworn in as the 16th President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria at the Eagle Square, Abuja on Monday, May 29, 2023. In his inaugural speech, the President announced some major policies initiatives his administration will effect. Amongst them are creation of jobs for 1 million Nigerians, a unified foreign exchange rate, increased power generation, greater investments in the country's security architecture, increase of the GDP by promoting local manufacturing and reducing dependence on importation. The President also announced that fuel subsidy has been removed and the Naira redesign policy will be revisited. Following his announcement of subsidy removal, queues began to resurface in fuel stations across the country on Monday, and the price of fuel shot up to as high as 500 Naira per litre. In a related development, US President Joe Biden on Monday expressed his desire to work with President Tinubu and strengthen the relationship between the US and Nigeria. The US President said he looks forward to continuing this work with President Tinubu to support economic growth, advance security, and promote respect for human rights. He noted that as Africa's largest democracy and economy, Nigeria's success is a world success. Moving on, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu was on Monday sworn in as the governor of Lagos State for second term, alongside his deputy, Dr. Obafemi Hamzat, at the Tafawa Balewa Square in Lagos. Speaking at his swearing-in, Governor Sanwo-Olu said he will dedicate himself to meeting and surpassing the expectations of Lagosians. We will work relentlessly to make Lagos a state where economic opportunities abound, where our infrastructure is robust and resilient, and where the rule of law prevails. But our vision for Lagos goes beyond our physical infrastructure and economic indicators. Our vision is for Lagos that is a beacon of cultural vibrancy, intellectual prowess, and humanistic values. He said of his governing agenda, we are taking our themes governing agenda to the next level. In this, our second term, themes, as you already know, stands for transportation and traffic management, health and environment, education and technology, making Lagos State a 21st century mega city, entertainment and tourism, and security and governance. Henceforth, it will be known as Themes Plus. The plus represented the incorporation of an intensified focus in the next 4 years on social inclusion, gender equality, and youth. And those are the headline news stories we'll be looking at today. Over to you, Dayo.
All right, thank you, Monisola. A quick one for you. We are getting news now that the NNPC, Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, has officially raised the rates of premium motor spirit, also known as petrol or fuel, and that in Lagos, the official price now is 488 Naira per litre. In Port Harcourt, is 511. In Abuja, it's about 587 or thereabouts. Before the end of this show, we'll be able to confirm to you if this is authentic or not, although we're getting it from very reliable sources. We shall take a short break now, and when we return, we'll be joined in the studio by our guest who will join me in analyzing the major stories of the day. Don't go away. Welcome back. Joining me to take a look at the big stories for today is Joe Ihitegbulem, a senior pastor and journalist. Reverend Joe Ihitegbulem, JP, is the Oshodi Isolo Local Government Area Director of the Directorate of Politics and Governance of the Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria, Lagos State, and the publisher of Oshodi Post Community Newspaper. Reverend Joe is also the senior pastor of the Last Commandment Ministries, Oshodi. Welcome to today's show, Pastor Joe.
Thank you for having me.
All right, it's a pleasure to have you here. Let's get into the discussion. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was inaugurated as the 16th president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria on Monday, and a lot of promises were made to Nigerians. Right at the inauguration, the president declared that fuel subsidy is gone, and hours later we saw the reaction immediately at the pump and at fuel stations. Before we get into the specifics, what do you think of President Tinubu's speech as a whole? The substance of what he said. Do you get a sense of renewed hope? Because that was what his message was all about, was sowing the seeds of hope to Nigerians whose situation in the last several years seemed to have been relatively hopeless. Do you feel a sense of renewed hope after listening to the inauguration speech of the new president? Reverend Joe.
Yeah, thank you. I must say that he mentioned specifically some of the things that worry Nigerians: increase in power generation, revisiting the exchange rate, and the Naira redesign. These things are very, very important things that has affected Nigerians recently. So I will say for the common man on the road, there's a renewed hope.
All right, that's interesting. Well, we know that there's been a lot of complaints in the past about the fact that the economy has been poor, unemployment is rife, all kinds of issues play, inflation, things are expensive in the marketplace, insecurity. So the new president seems to have a lot on his plate to contend with. And immediately right there, even before he has stepped into his office, controversy is already swirling around him based on this issue of fuel subsidy. Now, we know that the fuel subsidy thing was passed on by the Buhari administration. They said they leave it to the incoming administration to deal with. Within hours of his minutes of his inauguration, there's already controversy. How do you believe the president can manage all of the issues that are before him in terms of the problems facing Nigeria? Is he up to the task? Can any single individual actually grapple with all the issues that are bedeviling us as a people?
I think Tinubu is equal to the task. He had listened and watched and mingled around with the powers that be for over 20-something years. And I'm very happy the way he started very early. Started taking the bulls by the horns. And the issue of the subsidy, they say it will either kill Nigeria or survive Nigeria. So I'm very happy that he quickly addressed it. So I believe strongly that Tinubu will be able to handle this no matter how difficult they are. There might be some level of hardship. That's what I'm saying, some level of hardship. But I believe strongly that within the next few months, he will be in charge and he will actually begin to do things that will revive the economy, moving towards the right direction.
Do you think that it was the best thing to do to have dropped that bombshell at his inauguration, that fuel subsidy is gone? Look at the resultant effect immediately. Queues, scarcity, price hike, hoarding, and immediately visiting hardship on the populace within a few hours. Will that endear him to the populace, and will people look favorably upon him if the very first step he has taken is going to cause immediate hardship?
Thank you once more. I want to say that I really appreciated him for being, he's always a man realistic. And he knew that this is going to be one of the major things that will affect his administration. So he started early. Already there are a lot of stories about him, negative stories on air. He doesn't care. But he would want to do the right thing. So the earlier the better. That's my position.
All right. So your position is that fuel subsidy removal was inevitable. So he may as well have locked horns
The
with
day
it
he
right
will
from
do
the
it to
beginning.
happen is what we are waiting for. And today is the day.
And so, what does that tell us about what to expect from the president in the coming years, in the coming weeks, in the coming months, in terms of his style of governance? Is it that he's fearless and will be able to tackle issues head on, no matter whose ox is God in the process?
I would just warn anybody, any group or stakeholders in Nigeria to be careful, because this man will face all opposition to the Nigerian economy and Nigerian unity. And what I'm trying to say is that from what he passed through to get here, look at what your wife was saying the other day. My family will not depend and shall not depend on Nigerian money. From where he said something, he said we've been bruised. So from where they are coming from, they want to make a change. So I strongly believe that he will squarely handle all difficulties that have made Nigeria stagnant. And God being on his side, he will make it.
Well, let's talk about corruption. We know all the rumors that have swirled around him as a person, him as a former leader, him as an authoritative figure in the party. And over the years, we've heard a lot of rumors and speculation about how much he has acquired in personal wealth, about how much of it came about while he was in office. And those rumors have never been completely debunked, in spite of the fact that he's never been convicted of any offense that we are aware of, putting aside what transpired in the US years ago. But at least as far as his public service record in Nigeria, he's never been convicted of his hand being in the till or of his misappropriating any public funds. However, there are rumors that refuse to go away. Do you think he has a moral right to be able to try to fight corruption? Can he fight corruption in spite of the fact that he himself in certain quarters is viewed to have been a proponent of corruption himself?
Like you have rightly pointed out, that these rumors had always been there, though they have not been debunked or proved. But when I look around, I find out who are these people? Most of the propagators of this rumor, who are they? I don't want to be too personal. We know past presidents, what they built, what they did in their names. And when you look at Bola Tinubu, nobody has specifically said he owns this. And as sophisticated as these people spreading this rumor, they've not been able to prove that this is. And this man is saying that I invested over $2 million over 30, 40 years ago in stocks, if we know what it is. That means he's richer than most of these people are making noise. I was told that one of the financiers of Nadeco and so on and so forth. Why I'm not completely holding in brief for him, but if there's any man, according to him, that when he was talking about the mayor of the ward, that the horse ran away, left the whole opening and ran away. So he said, no, it doesn't make any meaning. I know he's sophisticated enough to tighten all the whole knots, easy knots of taking money away. He will do that. So this thing, whether he has a moral right to fight corruption, please, from legal point of view, he has. He has never been what? Indicted for corruption in any court of law.
Thank you, Pastor Joe. Interesting. One other thing that struck me from his inaugural speech was when he said he wants to unify the foreign exchange rate. As you know, we have the official rate, which is about 400 and something. We also have the black market rate, which is 700 and something. That gap creates a problem because most legitimate business people who try to get allocation can't get from central bank because they don't have dollars. They go and buy in the black market at 760 something. And so if they are now importing goods that they paid for with higher exchange rate, it makes the items more expensive for the consumer. Then, of course, that gap between the official and the black market rate creates opportunity for money making for a very select few who have connections at CBN and can get allocation at official rate and turn around and go and sell it at the black market and become billionaires overnight. Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu has promised, President Tinubu has promised to unify those two rates, eliminate two parallel rates and standardize one rate. Despite the fact that there are some very powerful people who are benefiting from these two rates, How easy do you think that he'll be able to achieve that? Is it achievable?
Also want to point out one thing here. Please take notice of whatever Tinubu says. He doesn't play with words. And there's one statement he made that he will promote, encourage local manufacturing to decrease dependence on foreign goods. All this dollar for import, because we are not producing them there. So I knew that he will go all about to make sure there's less demand for dollar for importation. Then when he unifies them, the black rate will come down, while the official rate will go up eventually. So having this in mind, I want to say that it's achievable. It's just a policy. But what you're going to tell me now, what's the effects on the economy and the people? So he can do that. It's achievable.
Okay, very good. Let's move on and let's talk about the Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, who was sworn in for his second term on Monday, along with his deputy Obafemi Hamzat. I happen to know that you attended that inauguration.
Yes, I was there.
You're one of the few privileged Lagosians who managed to get an accreditation pass and actually be there physically at the inauguration. And of course, the governor is viewed to have done relatively well in his first term, and he has made some robust promises to extend his performance and achievements in his second term. However, there are some Lagosians who still feel like there were some areas that were lacking. And I'll tell you those areas. Traffic management. The traffic is horrendous in Lagos. Roads are bad. We're at the onset of the rainy season now. Potholes are appearing everywhere. Road maintenance seems to have been very poor. And then the biggest problem, the third one, the biggest problem is this issue of area boys, agberos, touts, miscreants who seem to have taken over the streets of Lagos. It seems there's no political will to address this issue of never-do-wells who are holding sway across the streets of Lagos. Those areas Governor Sanwo-Olu is viewed as him having not performed so well. What can he do in his second term to improve performance in those areas? Traffic, I understand that a lot of the traffic is coming from construction. They seem to be doing a lot of, there's of course the red line, the blue line, the trains, there's bridges being built, there's roads being built. But can they not be better scheduled to where they're not causing so much hardship on Lagosians? So traffic, bad roads, and the issue of agberos and touts holding sway in Lagos. What should we look forward to in a second term? Because the theme's agenda is all good, but if you don't have peace of mind, security, safety, and good infrastructure, what good is theme's agenda?
Yeah, please, I want to quickly say this.
Yes.
That I always rate Sanwo-Olu based on his conflict and crisis management.
Okay.
His past 4 years with COVID-19 and NSAS.
Yes.
So when I look at him, the way he was able to manage Lagos, there were less bloodshed and destruction. So for me, rating him the past 4 years is more on how he was able to manage this crisis. Now, I felt he would be better positioned to do better. Okay, moving forward, I also want to say that, like you pointed out, most of the congestions are part of the developmental infrastructure going on now. But I want to say that he will be now more free. He's likely going to be the most powerful governor of Lagos State. Have to collect more from the federal government, where his own organ is now the president. So I believe there will be more federal government infrastructure development in Lagos State. And I want to quickly say that we are overhyping on the issue of area boys.
Okay.
Please permit me to say this.
Please do.
During December, I traveled home and I was at Onitsha. It was very bad in the late, around 10. And my brother lives just across Opiweka there. And I called my sister, where am I? So I told him, said, where are you going? I said, I'm going to Oka. He said, it's better you start going to Oka by 10 o'clock than entering Onitsha. Come out of that garage. I have to enter Oka. I got to Oka at 11. But I can't drop at Onitsha. So most of the time we overhype this thing in Lagos, and yes, Lagos is safer than even all these places. Please, I'm not holding in brief for the government, but I want us to be a little more realistic. How? The only thing I don't like is the way all those boys show themselves. You may see them by the street corner drinking early in the morning, but they're not harassing people again. There's a major difference what they do. 10 years ago, you see them picking pockets, always raping people. They don't do that again.
But if your car breaks down on Ikorodu Road this morning, or even in the evening on Third Mainland or somewhere, by the time you say Jack Robinson, they are out and they are all over you. And heaven help you if you don't settle them.
Thank you.
They will either destroy your car or they will not permit you to move that car from there. The moment you are in distress, you are in trouble at this time in Lagos.
Yeah, I want you, what you have just said is okay. But what I'm saying is that the way it's being discussed here, as if it's not in any other state, but you just made a statement. There seems to be no political power to deal with this. When you look at it critically, I would want this thing to be dealt from local governments.
Okay.
The local government authorities are in better position. Whether the state should create more money or whatever, they know these people, they know the job they can give them, and so on and so forth. It's easy to manage in Lagos than elsewhere. I want to believe that with Tinubu being in power and the accusations around him that he's going to use TAT all over Nigeria, and TAT to take over, I'm sure he will advise them in Lagos to put a stop to this nonsense.
So you see more of a socio-economic approach as opposed to a security approach. So it's not a law enforcement problem.
Yeah, that's why I say from local government point of view. Thank you, right? Thank you.
You are looking at things like employment,
creating all this and so forth. Yeah, that's
like
the only way.
When you mentioned the fact that now that his boss is president, now that Governor Sanwo-Olu's boss is president, that there should be greater synergy between the center and Lagos State. Do you think perhaps this might be a time when Lagos might be fortunate to get special status? Remember, they've been fighting for a long time that Lagos deserves special status, the same way that the Niger Delta states have special status and get extra derivation. There's been a fight for Lagos State to get special status because, of course, Lagos is where everybody in Nigeria wants to come. It's overburdened by population. The infrastructure can't cope. What do you think in rounding up? Because we are running out of time.
Exactly. That would be the expectations of every Lagosians. But what I know, Lagosians, they know how to get their things, especially with the Oga being in power. And the party in power have majority in the two chambers. So I know that that case will come up again. Even if it didn't come up, internally, security, there will be so much coming to Lagos in one form or the other.
Pastor Joe Ihitegbulem, it's been a really engaging time with you this morning. We thank you for your time. We've really enjoyed having you here. And if you don't mind, we'd love to invite you back again sometime in the future.
Thank you very much. I would like to come here again and say my mind on what I think that are realities facing us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And there's Pastor Joe giving us his take on the big stories that made the headlines yesterday, today, and every day. Thank you, Nigeria, for being a part of today's program. Join us again next time as we bring you various takes from everyday Nigerians across the East, West, North, and South. I am Dayo Akintobi. Many thanks for watching. Have a great day.